Information current through July 23, 2026. Because this remains an active investigation, some details may change as additional evidence, toxicology findings, and official reports are released. On July 4, 2026, 18-year-old Nolan Xavier Wells left the Mississippi Gulf Coast with friends for what was supposed to be a day of celebration on Horn Island. He never returned home. 2 days later, Nolan's body was found near the island's shoreline. His death has since become the focus of a closely watched investigation involving local authorities, civil rights leaders, independent medical experts, and a family determined to understand exactly what happened. But before Nolan Wells became the subject of national headlines, he was a son, brother, friend, student, and talented football player with plans for a future that was only beginning. This is the story of Nolan Xavier Wells, his life, his athletic dreams, and the unanswered questions surrounding his death. Nolan Xavier Wells was born on August 19, 2007, and grew up in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, a coastal community located along the Gulf of Mexico. Those closest to Nolan described him as compassionate, humble, and deeply devoted to his family. He was the son of Christine and Elmore Wansley and grew up with 5 siblings: Elmore, Ethan, Jalen, Jaden, and Carly. His family remembered him as a protective brother and a peaceful young man who often tried to bring people together rather than create conflict. During Nolan's memorial service, his parents spoke not simply about his athletic abilities, but about his personality. They described a young man with a gentle spirit, someone who loved people, valued friendships, and was known for being kind and respectful. Administrators at Ocean Springs High School offered a similar description. School officials remembered Nolan as a hardworking student, dependable teammate, and caring young man who made a lasting impression on his teachers, coaches, and classmates. Football was a major part of Nolan's life. Standing approximately 6 feet 1 inch tall and weighing around 185 pounds, Nolan played wide receiver. His combination of size, speed, and athletic ability made him a promising young prospect. After graduating from Ocean Springs High School, he joined the football program at Southwest Mississippi Community College. He was listed as a freshman wide receiver wearing number 16 and studied general business. Nolan reportedly hoped to continue developing as an athlete and eventually earn an opportunity to play Division I college football. His ambitions reached even further. Relatives said he dreamed of one day playing professionally in the National Football League. To Nolan, football represented more than a game. It was a possible path toward an education, a career, and a better future for himself and his family. Those dreams made the events of July 2026 even more devastating. Nolan had recently entered adulthood. His college career had barely begun, and his family believed his greatest opportunities were still ahead of him. On July 4, 2026, Nolan traveled by boat with a group of friends to Horn Island. Horn Island is a barrier island located several miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Large numbers of young people reportedly gathered there that day for a 4th of July beach celebration. According to reports, hundreds of people may have been present on or around the island throughout the afternoon. Nolan arrived with friends he had known from high school. At some point, however, Nolan became separated from the group with whom he had traveled. His friends eventually returned to the mainland without him. According to the initial account provided to investigators, Nolan had supposedly decided to remain on Horn Island and expected to obtain a ride back with someone else. His parents immediately questioned that explanation. They said leaving Nolan alone without a confirmed way home would have been inconsistent with both his personality and the safety rules they had taught him. Other accounts have reportedly suggested that Nolan had intended to leave with the same friends who brought him to the island. Because witness statements have not all been released publicly, it remains unclear exactly when Nolan was last seen, who last spoke with him, and what he said before his friends departed. Nolan's mother, Christine Wansley, became alarmed late that evening. At approximately 11 p.m., one of Nolan's friends contacted her. After attempting to locate her son herself, she reported him missing. One of Nolan's friends had also contacted the United States Coast Guard. 2 important personal belongings returned to the mainland without Nolan: his cell phone and his car keys. His mother used the Life 360 location tracking application to locate the phone. A friend retrieved it from the mainland, but Nolan's family later said that certain messages appeared to have been deleted. His father recovered Nolan's keys from the boat while Nolan's vehicle remained parked at the residence where the group had stayed before the trip. The phone, keys, and conflicting descriptions of Nolan's final movements became central concerns for his family. They wanted to know how Nolan's possessions returned while he remained on the island, who handled his phone, and whether deleted digital information could be recovered. Attorneys representing the family have said experts are working to examine the device and recover potentially missing communications. A major search effort began involving law enforcement, rescue personnel, volunteers, and maritime authorities. Nolan's body was discovered on July 6th, 2 days after the 4th of July trip, near the shoreline of Horn Island. Dental records were reportedly used to confirm his identity. Early in the investigation, Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter said Nolan's friends were cooperating with investigators. The sheriff also said that authorities did not initially suspect foul play and that drowning was being considered as a possible explanation. However, no official cause of death had been publicly established. Nolan's parents challenged the suggestion that he had simply chosen to remain behind and accidentally drowned. They emphasized that Nolan could swim and was a strong, physically conditioned athlete. Being able to swim does not eliminate the possibility of drowning, particularly in open water. But Nolan's family believed the unanswered questions required a much deeper investigation. Incorrect information also circulated concerning how Nolan was found. Some early public statements and media reports suggested that he had been found fully clothed. The United Cajun Navy, which participated in the recovery effort, later clarified that Nolan was reportedly found wearing blue swimming trunks, not a full set of clothing. The organization said the misinformation resulted from an earlier interview in which an inaccurate statement was not immediately corrected. This clarification is important because the case has generated extensive online speculation. Details that have not been officially confirmed should not be treated as established evidence. Mississippi authorities conducted the first autopsy, but as of July 23, 2026, the full state autopsy and toxicology findings had not been publicly released. Nolan's family arranged a second independent examination. That autopsy was performed by forensic pathologist Dr. Roger Mitchell and was funded through an initiative associated with former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick. The independent examination did not determine Nolan's cause or manner of death. The report found no fractures or deep tissue injuries. It did, however, document a red area of discoloration on the back of Nolan's head. The finding was considered inconclusive and required additional investigation. Decomposition significantly limited what could be established. Because Nolan had already undergone the state autopsy, his internal organs and neck structures had been removed and retained for examination. Medical experts noted that this is not an unusual autopsy procedure. However, their absence during the independent examination prevented Dr. Mitchell from independently evaluating Nolan's lungs for possible drowning evidence or examining the neck structures for injury. The independent report classified both cause and manner of death as undetermined pending further investigation. Dr. Mitchell did not conclude that Nolan had been killed. He also said that based on the evidence available to him, he could not exclude the possibility that non-accidental factors contributed to the death. That distinction is critical. As of July 23rd, there was no publicly released medical finding proving homicide, accidental drowning, or any other specific cause. As public concern increased, Nolan's family retained prominent civil rights attorney Ben Crump. Crump has represented the family during meetings with officials and has requested additional evidence, digital information, and medical records. The family has also raised concerns about the speed and transparency of the initial investigation. Nolan was black, while the friends pictured with him during the trip were white. His parents and their representatives have asked investigators to consider every possibility, including whether racial bias affected Nolan's treatment or the handling of the case. No public evidence has established that Nolan's death was racially motivated. However, the history of racial violence and distrust of authorities in Mississippi has contributed to the family's concerns and to the national attention surrounding the case. The family's efforts have been supported by civil rights leaders and public figures, including Reverend Al Sharpton, Tyler Perry, and Colin Kaepernick. Tyler Perry reportedly helped cover Nolan's funeral expenses and contributed to a financial reward for information. By July 23rd, the total reward being offered for information had reached approximately $125,000. Nolan's funeral was held in Ocean Springs on July 20th, 2026. Reverend Al Sharpton delivered the eulogy as relatives, friends, teammates, and members of the community gathered to honor Nolan's life. Although much of the national discussion centered on how Nolan died, his family wanted people to remember how he lived. He was remembered as an affectionate son, a loyal friend, a protective brother, and a talented athlete who dreamed of reaching the highest levels of football. His loved ones described his presence as calming and his personality as warm and compassionate.
Today, family and friends of Nolan Wells gathered in a Mississippi church to mourn and celebrate his life. The 18-year-old was laid to rest in his hometown of Ocean Springs, where he was a standout high school football player. Investigators say they believe Wells drowned during a July 4th boating trip with friends. His body was recovered near a remote barrier island. Autopsy results are pending.
The investigation remains active. Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath has said the complete evidence will be presented to a grand jury after investigators finish their work. The state autopsy is expected to remain sealed during that process in order to protect the integrity of the investigation. Toxicology findings and the conclusions of the original autopsy have not yet been publicly disclosed. Investigators may also continue reviewing cell phone information, witness accounts, photographs, videos, boat movements, and the timeline of Nolan's final known hours. At this point, no individual has been publicly charged with a crime connected to Nolan's death. The sheriff's initial position was that foul play was not suspected. The independent medical examiner, however, determined that the available evidence was insufficient to establish either an accidental or non-accidental cause. Those two facts do not prove one another wrong. They show that the investigation has not yet produced a publicly confirmed explanation. Nolan Xavier Wells lived for only 18 years, but those years left a lasting impression on his family, school, teammates, and community. He was a college freshman preparing for the next chapter of his life. He had football ambitions, professional dreams, and a family that expected to watch him grow into the man he was becoming. Instead, his loved ones are now searching for answers. What happened after Nolan arrived on Horn Island? Why did his friends leave without him? How did his phone and keys return to the mainland? What information might still exist on that phone? And what will the state autopsy, toxicology results, and grand jury review ultimately reveal? Until investigators can answer those questions with reliable evidence, Nolan's cause and manner of death remain undetermined. His family is asking for something simple but essential, not rumors, assumptions, or social media accusations, but a complete and truthful accounting of their son's final hours. For now, Nolan Wells should be remembered not merely as the young man at the center of a mystery, but as a son, brother, student, and athlete whose life mattered and whose family deserves to know what happened. I can monitor the investigation and let you know when the official autopsy, toxicology findings, or grand jury developments are released.